Let me change my mic. Oh, okay. Oh, can't see my mic. Let's see. Okay, I think we're good to go. So, last time I started reading Principles of Building AI Agents, we got through, I think, about 4 chapters, and whatchamacallit, was able to get the preliminary agent working. And then today, what I want to do is actually, instead of reading the book, we're going to check out some docs. So I'm going to pull up the app that I built, and then I am going to use the Prime Intellect agent. So this is something that I haven't used before. One of my friends told me about it this weekend. I'm going to use the Prime Intellect agent in GLM. I'm going to hit the app. I'm going to ask what docs might be relevant for this app. We're going to check out the docs together. Then I'm going to go back into the app and maybe check out the changelog from Mastra and Arcade and see if there's a cool feature that would make sense to add. So without further ado, let me share my screen, get a terminal going, and we're off to the races. So give me 1 second. All right, let's go ahead and clear. And I'm gonna do Prime Agent. This is my first time using the Prime Agent, so actually excited using GLM 5.2. So I'm gonna say explore this repo and tell me what it does in detail. Then link me to one Arcade docs page and one Mastra docs page you think would be useful. And if you weren't here for the last stream, what I'm building is SavePoint. What SavePoint does is it allows you to make sure that any code that you are pushing or merging or reviewing with AI, you actually understand it. So it's going to look at the code. You can set a persona. Um, you can set like basically how thorough you want the answer to be generated. And the idea is this could be a part of your CI process where code review isn't just looking at the code, but also can you explain what this code touches in the PR. So now that I think we're good there, I'm going to get back into my Prime agent and let's see what my Prime agent is doing. So this is really interesting UI. First of all, I want to mention I have noticed that UIs are changing and I have my own UI argument that I'll be making pretty soon. But I like the way that the Prime agent's working. It's showing you the exact Python calls, and it looks like it's definitely very Python focused. Let me see if there's maybe some settings so we can get even more verbosity. So settings, all of this seems good. Is there something to get me even more detail? It doesn't look like. Hide thinking is false. That's the only thing I'm thinking about. Yeah, okay, that's cool. So the user asked me to find one arcade stock page and one master docs page. In my head, they should give us the gateway page as well as the Mastra resume and suspend, which will understand better why I think those are the two. But let's see what two docs it represents or it gives me. Okay, so SafePoint is an agent skill that solves a very specific modern problem. You merge AI written code you only half read, and a month later, you can't explain your own system. It turns out that it turns the post merge moment into an interactive comprehension quiz with spaced repetition recall, so understanding is built and tested while the diff is still fresh. And then retested on a schedule to make sure it lasts. So, yeah, it seems like the Prime agent understands what I'm building. After you merge a PR at any point, you can run save point start dash dash diff. Your AI coding agent reads what changed, builds a world map of the code base, organized into RPG style chapters, which are major flows, maps, data movement, and secrets, non obvious invariants, as well as boss fights and New Game Plus. It's then going to ask you one source grounded question at a time. Wait for the answer in your own words, grades it honestly, schedules a concept to come back later on a spaced schedule, right? So that's spaced repetition. Now let's talk about some key design principles. Your words only. Um, Nothing is ever generated by the LLM. Honest labels, so hint, source trail, explanation means that it gets marked that as assisted. So you can ask questions, but it will make it an assisted turn. No answer leaks while a question is open. Make sure that you're not looking at answers. And then polite. So it's only at natural boundaries after test pass or commit lands that it's going to pop up. And appealable grading, right? Since LLMs can be wrong, you can actually go in there and appeal. And then one identity everywhere. So it doesn't matter if you're using Claude Code, Codex, Goose, or the Prime Agent, you would get the same thing. Now let's take a look at how we've organized the repo. So we've got the skill MD, which is the meat of it, obviously, the runtime contract, the full instruction set the agent follows during a session, 400 lines of precise behavior rules. Then we've got our BDD, so Gherkin scenarios for the behavior contract, some templates, deterministic scripts, so that's just going to be some hygiene stuff, the MCP server, so TypeScript MCP server that distributes the skill via the skills extension with an automated test suite, Claude Code plugin, and then we also have this eval that's going to make sure that everything is going well. So first of all, shout out to Prime. I think this is a pretty solid explanation of this repo, right? There's three different paths. We've got the curl one liner, we've got the MCP, etc. Okay, so now let's take a look at the two things that it said would be useful. For Arcade, it gave me the build MCP server quick start, and for Mastra, it gave me the agent skills. So without further ado, let's dive right into, oh, sorry, to these docs. So let me go full screen on this. Build an MCP server quick start from Arcade. Build and run an MCP server with tools that you can create. So I think I'm actually going to follow along with this live and let's do it. So let me minimize this. I'm going to do a new Prime agent strictly for following this guide. And let's build an MCP server. And also follow through these docs and see how the docs recommend doing it. So build and run an MCP server with tools that you create. What am I going to learn? I'm going to learn some good stuff. Let's mkdir arcade quick start cd. I wonder if cd lamb codes. Okay, so then I'm going to do prime agent, and I'm going to oh wait, I shouldn't have done prime agent. That was a little premature. I'm going to go ahead and UV tool install Arcade MCP. It looks like Arcade MCP is already installed. So I'm going to clear because I like my terminal clean. Okay, so Arcade, new my server, and then CD into my server. So boom, boom, boom. We are now in my server. In my server, I have init and I have ls. So let's just take a look at this. Oh, whoops. Nothing. Okay. So if we take a look at this server, we see that it's just Arcade MCP server, context MCP app. Oh, we're bringing in Reddit. Okay, that's cool. So this is just an MCP app to greet someone by name. Got the env file. And then we can get post in a subreddit with this starter MCP. So that's really cool. Okay, so I ran this, and just like it said it would, it did indeed generate a Python module with the following structure. So server.py, which is what I just looked like, is the entry point file. We've got our Py project as well as env example. So now I have to set up the secrets in my environment. So I'm going to set up that secret. I'll do that later when I stop sharing my screen. But for now, I'll actually unshare my screen now and put in my secrets. Okay, so 1 second. I need my secret. Get me a secret. Okay, so I'm grabbing my API key for the Arcade MCP Quick Start. We're going to do expire, no expiration, create that API key. And don't worry, I will be deleting this key for all of you guys who are trying to hack me, even though you can't see it. Maybe someone saw the reflection in my eyes, you know? So, 1 second. Now, let me get that key in there. Okay, so I'm adding in my key into the .env. Just had to copy over the env example and actually put in my secret key. And of course, never commit your environment file. Got to make sure that we're staying safe. And now I can share my screen again. Okay, cool. So let's close that and we'll go back to these docs. Okay, so I've added my key. Now I've already logged in. I can run Arcade Who Am I? So we can see that I am logged in as Thierry at brisedemer.io. Now let's try to actually run this MCP server. So let's see. And we should see output like this in our terminal. Actually, I shouldn't do this in Claude because it's going to be weird. I should do this in a clean terminal. So cd arcade quick start, and then this cd message file or directory. Wait, what am I missing here? I know it's late in the day, but failed to spawn no such file or directory. Wait a second. Okay. I just had to get in there. My bad. All right. So now we see. Let's take a look at this. So now we see this output that it said that we should see. So we added the tool greet, we added the tool whisper secret, we added the tool get post in subreddit. So now we can actually configure our MCP clients. So let's say I want to configure cursor. We'll try that because why not? And then arcade configure cursor. Let's see. Restart cursor for the change to take effect. Oh, it already exists. Okay, so that's fine. We don't care. And then we should be able to use it now. So let me open up cursor. Let's do a file, new agent. And I'm just going to say star the Arcade MCP repository on GitHub. And I'm using Omni here. So it's going to go through a different spot, but I do believe that this connected. I just have another MCP server connected already to my cursor. So this is how Arcade recommends simply building a MCP server. Super simple, right? Basically, all we need to care about is this server.py. So if I cat server.py, we can take a look at this again in more detail. But this is a pretty simple script, right? We import some arcade stuff, we import behavior classification, etc. We show you how to just do a normal tool that might greet a person by name. We show you how to do a local tool where you might need a secret. We're also going to show you, hey, here's how you can create a tool that actually hits something else. So for example, here's this tool that is going to allow you to hit Reddit. So we're using this OAuth from Reddit, right? Where we can actually go hit the hot of whatever the subreddit is that we're interested in. And the user would have to put in their Reddit account, but all they need to do is log into Reddit. Arcade is going to handle everything else for you, and then you'd be good to go. And then the last part is just running it with a specific transport, which is SDD, sorry, standard IO is the default. And then we also have HTTPS, of course. So that's the arcade part, which is basically if we do arcade, new, and then, dancing, it's going to create that MCP server. So once you have Arcade installed on your machine, all you have to do is just Arcade new, whatever the name of the MCP server is, and you'll have a solid battle tested MCP server ready to go. So that was the arcade part that the Prime agent recommended. And now I'm curious what part oh, I need to open up my terminal. Now I'm curious about the Mastra guide. So we also had this Mastra doc. So this is just a Mastra docs skills MD, um, where it's telling us all about agent skills. So skills are reusable instructions that teach agents how to perform specific tasks. They follow the agent skill spec. Um, what is the agent skill spec? Let's see. So the agent skills spec is agentskills.io, which we're just quickly going to head on over here. Lightweight open format for extending AI capabilities with specialized knowledge and workflows. So at its core, skill is just a folder with a skill MD, but it can also have things like scripts, references, assets, etc. Okay, so this is like fine, but I think a much more interesting master docs to check out is this suspend and resume. And I think this is actually a great place to ask the Prime agent, why didn't it recommend suspend? Why didn't you recommend suspend and resume? Because I think it's a really, really good example here, and it's probably the most powerful part of this demo. So let's see. The user asking why I didn't recommend Master suspend and resume. Yep, it is quite relevant. Okay, so maybe that's just GLMing. I haven't used GLM too much, so that could be the thing. But let's see what its reasoning was. Why I picked skills instead? Because the repo is packaged as an agent skill. Yeah, that makes sense, but I think I'd rather look at this. Okay. And it's also kind of funny that it's giving me the markdown version of the the docs because the agent likes that, but obviously as a human, I enjoy formatting and such. So let's take off this .md. Okay. Suspend and resume. Workflows can be paused at any step to collect additional data or wait for API callbacks. So if we think about what Arcade does, which is it allows you to delegate authority, this is super useful, right? Because now when I tell my agent to do XYZ, in SavePoint specific case, it's answer a question about this code so that the PR can pass. We can just suspend the workflow there. It might be anytime you want to send an email to an external stakeholder, let's suspend and resume, right? Because first we want to send a message to you on Slack to make sure that you actually want this email to go out, or we want to send you a text message, or we want to send you whatever, right? So this suspend and resume workflow I think is super cool. Workflows can be paused at any step to collect additional data or wait for API callbacks. So obviously this is going to fit in really well with Arcade because this human in the loop input is a really nice workflow for Arcade, right? Where we can say, for example, if you send an email and that email is not to an internal person at the company, then let's get a human in the loop to make sure that the email can actually come out. So, pausing a workflow with suspend. With suspend, you can pause a workflow execution at a specific step. You can define a suspended condition in the steps execute block. Okay, so this is when I'm going to actually go back to Prime and I'm going to say, please show me the exact suspend and resume code. Please show me the exact suspend and resume code and how it works with Arcade. And given the fact that this was built using AI, I can only assume that there might be some issues, but that's why we're going through it is to see, hey, when we ask AI to build stuff like this, what are potential issues? What are potential gaps? What does it do right? And what does it do wrong? So now let's see. Let's see. Um, so it's actually looking at the docs, which is interesting. Instead of looking at the app, I meant in our app. I do love how deep it went, but yeah, uh, I was looking more for in the app. Okay, so we already knew that there was a step and resume, but yeah, I'm looking for in our app. I wonder, can we force the steer? I meant in our app. Yeah. It's a really good example of like dealing with LLMs where like you say something that seems so obvious and then you realize like, oh wait, yeah. That wasn't too obvious clearly since the LLM wasn't there. And as a reminder, like I said, I'm testing out GLM 5.2 in the Prime agent just to see how this all works together. So, all right. So, how suspend and resume actually works? Yes, exactly. The suspend, closing a session. When a session ends, the agent writes a save point. What closed, chapter status, what's due next. That state lives in a recall.md. So I'm using just all MD files because I wanted this to be portable. I think at some point in the future we'll end up adding a real database, but for now, MD files are great. And you can see here we have this question 14 where we have the due date, which is when will this concept come back? And you can edit that, right? Because some people want spaced repetition in an hour, some people want it in a day, some people want it in a week, some people want it in a month, some people want a combo. So I let you go crazy. Created at, when did was this question created? Pretty clear. Source paths. So what files is this question that I'm going to ask you actually going to hit? What stage? So if you're doing the intervals, we're able to see what stage of the interval you're on, what kind of scheduling mode. So adaptive is going to actually wait for a time where tests have passed or commit is pushed to ask you questions. You can also have more strict schedules if you don't care about breaking your flow, or even less strict schedules so it will only pop up when you're really not doing anything. Importance, so this is just kind of a custom metric. How important is this question? Section, chapter, last assisted, right? Did you get help last time you did it? Last time you answered the question, what was the quality of the answer? Is it pending evaluation? Did you snooze it? Do you want to dismiss it? So, all of this is really important because we're able to suspend all of this data at the close of a session. And you can imagine this is us building this code comprehension tool, but it could be us building an email agent, a trades agent, etc. Being able to suspend and then pick up and resume at any time in the future is super useful, right? Save point holds the verbatim answer, so whatever the user said, and then when you resume and you start a new session, it's going to evaluate the pending answers, offer the recall, then give me new questions. So only the new questions phase needs the repository. Everything else works anywhere. So then we also have the spaced recall suspension for the space repetition, right? So anytime a question closed, reschedule is going to compute the next due at. So if you're going to have those questions with the space repetition, it needs to know when you answer the question so that it can know when to ask the question again. And this is literally deterministic, right? There's nothing that the AI can mess up. All we do is we're going to see, hey, was the quality that you were assisted? Was your answer solid or was it not? So, um, obviously, if you get assistance, we're not going to move you forward. And if your answer is shaky, we're also not going to move you forward. So, the agent calls the script, gets back to the new stage and the do at, and writes them into recall MD. So, that concept then gets suspended, right? And then there's the resume trigger, which is going to resume that concept, right? And then the key line is if next do at in recall has passed, then the hook's going to emit a JSON nudge into the session actual context. And then we also have cross repo eval. So this isn't just for one repo. This eval might be over multiple repos. So you're working in repo B, you get a question from repo A, you can answer it right on the spot. Now, how does this map to Arcade? Well, our MCP server actually distributes the skill, but it's a read only distribution channel. The actual suspend and resume lives on my machine at this point, right? Now, this is the fun part and what we're actually going to be working on today, which is connect save point to Arcade, right? We want to connect this to the MCP gateway as a transport as opposed to just having it on my computer. Now, the reason why it wasn't a library feature is because we wanted this all to work everywhere. But I think now is a good time to A, just test out SavePoint, and then B, um, trying to connect it to that Arcade MCP gateway as a transport, right? So it's not just running locally on your machine. So I'm gonna go ahead and head back to here. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and let's pull this up again and actually run SavePoint. So I need to go grab my GH dash. Okay, so okay, so let me go into Arcade Mastra. Okay, so we are in the right place. Let's go to SavePoint. And then let's blow this up. So, first question is bash scripts open pr.sh. Let me check my notes. Yeah, I do believe that is correct. So, just ran that. PR number 12 was opened. So now I should have this PR open. Let's actually just check to make sure that we are not making things up. So now if I go to this repo, boom. So I just added a little bit of BDD here to try to find out like, okay, how do we add multiplication to this? And the answer is we can multiply two numbers. And actually, this might be a good time to show you what this repo looks like. So This repo is a very simple repo that I'm using to demonstrate where I've built a calculator in Python. So calculate a plus b, calculate. If the operator's plus, then do a plus b. If the operator's minus, then do a minus b, right? And then this we also have this calculator.feature, which is our gherkin, and we have our scenarios in here, right? When I add two numbers, here's what happens. When I subtract two numbers, here's what happens. And then reject an unsupported operator. So if someone were to do multiply or divide, it wouldn't work. Now we've got this PR that came in, which implements the multiplication scenario from calculator.feature. So now let me take a look at the actual code. And yeah, it's just a times returns a times b. So what I want to do now is npm run save point. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I already have the command literally right here. Look at me. Okay. So as I run this, we see now this suspended situation, and we also see on the right that we are now given this question. So I've created save point to be very harsh, right? This gate is literally closed until you answer. So the question we get asked here is, why was the new multiplication check placed before the raise value error line rather than say before the subtraction check? Reply with your answer. This gate stays closed until comprehension is demonstrated. So I know the answer, which is A, order of operations, and B, we needed to have it before the raise because otherwise it wouldn't know the other bad operations. But for fun, I'm gonna say because I felt like it. I'm gonna go ahead and drop that comment there. And then I'm going to resume. It has my answer there. It's resuming the workflow. I'm going to go ahead and guess that it's not going to, yeah, it's not going to accept that answer. It would have been funny if it did, but unfortunately, no such luck. I have. Oh, I haven't been sharing my screen. Uh-oh. Let me share my screen first, and then we can go through that again. That's too funny. Here, 1 second. Okay, so I wasn't sharing my screen for that, so let's go ahead and share, and we can just restart what I just did. So I'm actually just going to make a new PR, right? I think that makes a lot of sense here because, okay. So I'm running the script that's going to make a new PR. Oh, actually, I need to reset the demo first. So let's reset the demo. And then after that, let's go ahead and clear. Okay, so now if I do open PR, we'll see a PR appear here. Boom. So we've got this add multiplication PR that shows up here. And if I click on this, what you see is that I implement the multiplication scenario from calculator.feature. And if we actually take a look at the code, it's just going to ask me, or sorry, it's just literally adding in this other one, if operator star return A times B, right? So now we have multiplication. So now that we have our PR come in, we want to demonstrate how SavePoint works, which is you're going to get a question right on the PR that asks you how this thing works. And now might be a good time for everyone to say, well, obviously, with this, you could just use AI and cheat. And yes, I think people could obviously use AI and cheat, but the idea behind this is kind of twofold. First, like, I'm trusting that if you work at a company or if you're doing this, then you're not going to just lie, cheat, or steal. Um, and then B, even if you do have to look it up to answer, you know the answer. So that's better off than you not knowing the answer and you didn't have to look it up, right? Obviously, we'd prefer if your comprehension level was natural, but hey, if you had to use AI, then um, obviously that's better than nothing. But the entire idea behind this is you work with people that you trust to use it without AI. So here is the actual answer. Before the change, star wasn't handled or asterisk, so it fell through. The new branch matches, but it has to sit before the raise because the raise exits the function immediately. A branch after it would be unreachable, and 4 times 3 would still throw. But its position among other operator checks doesn't matter. The operators are mutually exclusive, so only before the raise is load bearing. You know AI wrote it because it says load bearing. Every other operator still falls through to value error, which keeps the unsupported operator scenario passing. And you can see this is a pretty small repo, but since I have it tuned up to a high level, the question, even on this small repo, requires you to actually understand how this all works. So now I'm going to drop this comment and let's go ahead and resume the process. So now it should pass me, unless the AI is being really harsh today, but I'm assuming that it's going to pass me. Boom. Pass, comprehension demonstrated, quality solid, grounded equals true. The answer directly explains that the placement relative to the raise statement is what's important. The rest of the stuff we don't care about, right? So um, that's basically how this works. Now, I've have been able to add GitHub, and B, we talked about how this runs on the local machine, but we actually want it to run on the whatchamacallit, on the MCP, right? So the idea here is, okay, this is really cool that I can just reply in GitHub, but what if I wanted it to work inside of my client? What if I wanted it to work in Slack? What if I wanted to get an email? And that's how I prefer to answer my questions. Um, or what if we want to be able to look at my email because that well, I've been having conversations about this repo with someone, and that's going to help inform the questions we should give, right? So that's kind of the next step here with this is, okay, we have this skill that is going to drop a comment on your PR and ask you to answer that question. And all of this is powered by Arcade, so we make sure that the agent has the right read and write permissions, right? And that it's also doing it as an actual user, right? So you see here, it doesn't say like, GitHub agent. This is an actual GitHub profile that is posting the question, right? Um, so I think when I'm thinking about MCP and skills, it's and Arcade, of course, it's like, okay, the save point thing makes a ton of sense, right? Super useful to have that knowledge, and now I can merge it because I have answered the question. By the way, so obviously that's great. We love that, but the question is, how can we make this better? And for me, the answer is let's tie it into other systems, right? So I'm gonna go back to um, my prime intellect thing, and I'm gonna say, okay, let's make Arcade MCP gateway the transport. So that's the first thing we're going to try to do today. We got about 20 minutes left, so let's see how far we can get with this. And once again, very curious as to how a model like GLM on high is going to handle this. Am I going to have to get in there and edit stuff? Will it work flawlessly? What can I learn about how we're teaching people how to use Arcade? These are all things that I'm thinking about, right? It's just what's the best way to get this task done? And also, what's the most portable way to do this? Because now we know that some coders are using Herder, some are using Orca, some are using Claude Code, some are using whatever. Um, it's it has to work everywhere basically. And also you need to be flexible, and not everyone's going to want to answer their questions in a GitHub PR, right? Some people are going to want it as a Slackbot message. Some people are going to want it as a linear issue. Some people are going to want it as a Gmail. Whatever people want, then make sure that you make that happen, right? It's really interesting how the Prime agent, I'm going to take a little detour here and talk about the Prime agent for a second. It's really interesting how the Prime agent is showing me all of this Python, and also the fact that it's creating specific variables, it looks like, for each. It's not like doing it on the fly. And I know that there's a self improving skill aspect to this as well, which is a bit ironic because we're building a skill. But I do wonder what exactly is going on. All right, while this is cooking, in the name of not having dead airtime, let's check out what is new on Hacker News. So, how Blue Sky draws its logo on screenshots, Quake Shakeware, Fairphone 6, GPU offloading. Oh, DuckDB2, that's interesting. GPT Sol cut pricing by 50%? Wait, huh? GPT Sol cut their pricing by 50%? Wow. Okay, I guess it's GPT season, huh? There's a GitHub incident, AI generated GitHub Copilot auto fix. Wow, that's crazy. So an AI generated GitHub Copilot auto fix allowed compromise of Snowflake's Jira. What? This is interesting, and of course it's Wiz. Part of ongoing security research. Okay. Man, this is interesting. So basically, yeah, no one is safe anymore, huh? So, just 5 days before its discovery. Huh. Let's check on my agent, but this is interesting. Okay, it looks like it's still doing stuff. So let's go back to this. Huh. Yeah. This is a tricky one, man. This is a tricky one. Ooh, yeah. I should write a blog about this because this is, oh wow. Okay. Well, after this, I'll probably write a blog about that. But yeah, this is really, really interesting. Okay, how are we doing here? It's still working. It's still working. Okay. So while it's working, we'll keep looking at some news. AI didn't read. Is this going to be a don't write with AI post? I'm super jealous that I didn't think of this first. Hat tip to Lil C. Okay. I've been thinking about it ever since. Why? Because the growing grumbling. Yeah, I actually, yeah, I've been thinking about a blog that's like, I'm taking away my AI's right privileges. Because I actually kind of agree with this. I think I've gotten way too used to using AI, and there's definitely value in just not using it. So yeah, I like this. Rick, I'll come back to this. I think you're onto something good here. All right, let's see. It's still cooking. Add an HTTP transport. Let's go. While that's happening, back to the news. Sun clock. What the heck is sun clock? Oh, this hurts my brain. I'm not smart enough for this. Okay, it's a geolocation thing. I see. How to avoid intrusive AI. Also, one of the signs you've made it is when people start referring to their thing as like the U for whatever. It's a great thing to do. Oh, while we're here, just I should shout out some things that we have going on. So on Saturday, the 22nd, we got the Dogathon going on in San Francisco. So those of you who are based in SF, come on out, hang out with some dogs. Let's catch a vibe, baby. All right, let's see where my agent is. Okay, well, while it's doing its thing, we can at least start reading. So, how does the Prime agent plus GLM want to do this? Add HTTP transport, add new tools that wrap the shell scripts. That's fair. I wouldn't have done it this way. I would have done a jobs to be done framework, but that's fine. We can come back and change that later. Like Sam said, just build it the first time, then you build it right, then you build it cheap and fast. So right now we're just building it, which we enjoy. Update package.json, create deployment docs, update tests. Yeah, this all checks out. I don't really see any um, new tools. So we're going to do check do, we're going to do reschedule, we're going to do get stats, we're going to do hash answer, we're going to do derive repo ID. Okay. I don't see any problems with this. I think it could be improved, but those are fine. Um, boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so Arcade Gateway requires streamable HTTP transport. Arcade only proxies tools from remote servers. The MCP SDK already exports. All 5 shell scripts are pure read compute. And Arcade's audit logs, baby. I'll actually show everyone that right now because I think that the audit logs are one of the coolest things about Arcade. So if you ever come into your Arcade dashboard, right, this is the main dashboard. There's also going to be this audit logs page. So you can see literally when I created that API key during this video, you would have been able to come here and see it. So you can keep tabs on everything that's happening with this page right here. Okay, so going back to here, it looks like it's simply going through these steps, and now we're running the full CI check. I can expand with Control O, and I will expand. Okay. Okay. I love it. Running some tests, send a message while your agent works to steer its current task. All 3 tests pass. Let me also run the CI script checks. And it should also be noted that you can deploy stuff on Arcade with Arcade Deploy. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. Can we deploy on Arcade Deploy? Or I shouldn't say on, with. And this deployment basically allows us to have our MCP server deployed out in the wild so anyone can use it. It's really interesting, I think, what they decide to show you and what they don't decide to show you with these agent harnesses, because sometimes it'll truncate the code and then sometimes it shows you this. And I do wonder how they're deciding what to show you and what not to show you. Not like how the code works, more just like what do the discussions sound like. Oh, we need to have it in Python, and we built ours in TypeScript. It seems pretty easy. Just swap it to Python. Yeah, simple. Simple, easy app. Okay, we got about 10 minutes left, so probably let this run for like 5 and then do a little wrap up. Hey, okay. I mean, it's fast. I'll give GLM that. It's definitely fast. Okay. Now I want Arcade Cloud. And I want it now. Okay, so now we're going to be deploying this on Arcade Cloud. And then we can test it. And yeah, shout out to the Arcade team, shout out to the Mastra team, and shout out to the AI teams because this has been a really smooth and painless process. Just prompting Arcade, prompting Mastra, was able to get suspend and resume working, was able to get Arcade working. Now going to deploy my MCP server on Arcade. I think I might actually save that for the next one where we deploy it, just hit it, and then we keep building. All test pass. Hey. Now we're going to test with Arcade MCP to verify it serves correctly. Server works, but it needs an Arcade header. Okay. I think that's one of the coolest things about the open source models now is that they might make the mistake, but they are able to heal and figure out like what to do next, which is really cool. Failed to deploy, sir. Oh, my deployment limit reached. That's fair. Okay. So I'll come back to this next time. I have a lot of MCPs deployed, so I need to clean some up. But to wrap up, basically what we did today is we built an MCP server using Arcade and Mastra that has a suspend and resume function so that you can do code review. Now, a lot of you might be thinking right now, well, what's the point of combining these things? And the point is, right now, it's just on GitHub, right? But eventually, we're going to want to add it to Slack. We're going to want to add it to a web UI. We're going to want to let people use it directly from their terminal, etc. We might want a dashboard where we can see how different people are doing on different questions, right? And that's where it becomes more of an app, and all of these tools will come together to bring it all in one place. So, thank you all for joining me today. I'm going to be back tomorrow. We'll probably do a little more reading tomorrow. We'll do the deployment. I also, we might talk about plugins, do a little quick detour. I do want to finish up with the master project though, so let's hope we can get this finished out this week. And thank you all for joining me. Catch you guys next time. Peace.